Okay, now.
All right. I'd like to call this evening's City Council meeting to order. Tonight is Tuesday, July the 28th. It is approximately a minute after 7, and we are conducting this meeting via Zoom because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Springer,
Here.
Chairman Pro Tem,
Here.
Member Carl,
Here.
Member Waldman,
Here.
and Council Member Weil.
Here.
Next item.
Item number 2, communications. There were no written communications.
Item number 3.
City manager report, and let me just bring that up, and then I will share my screen. And can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. I had the wrong date on that. Okay, so just an update on our projects again. The work has started at, MSD work is starting at the Olive Crossing. They're installing a sanitary line that's part of the 82nd Street project. So it's going north up to Olive. It'll then kind of go down Olive into University City. The actual project site work will continue after that work is done. There was an agreement with the developer and MSD that they would give MSD the kind of the site to work in to get that project done, because that is part of a consent decree for the Metropolitan Sewer District. The Ridge House development, if you've been by the old City Hall, you'll see that the demolition is continuing, and the only building left is the old City Hall. I believe they're doing some clean out of that this week, and I believe the building will actually come down at the end of this week or beginning of next week. That is a project that was in the Business Journal, St. Louis Business Journal, under Crane Watch, and we noticed that the name of the apartment complex is the Oliver, which one of our staff members said was quite a twist. Plant Haven and Firestone, that was Carlos Trejo who said that. Plant Haven and Firestone, those two sites, staff is beginning, they both submitted the plans, and the staff has begun the permit review. So once that permit review is completed and permits are issued, they will begin construction. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Firestone site and the Veteran Memorial there. We are part of that, the agreement with Firestone is that they were going to do improvements on that site. And we held meetings with them, with the Lamar Johnson architect firm who helped design this. They also helped, played an important role in the development of the Olive master conceptual plan. So one of the concerns the city has had for quite a while is the depth of that, the fountain there. And so this is the kind of the conceptual design as that area gets renovated. This will be something that Firestone will be working on. This hasn't had final approval yet. As I said, it's the conceptual design. And what you'll notice is Olivet and Bloom will continue to have kind of the main show there with their plantings up at the front. Where then as you go south, you'll have more of kind of some of the native plantings, although you still have some color in there. Different trees will be planted. We're going to have a permanent flagpole. Right now, even though it's Veterans Memorial, it's a temporary pole that we put up. And then we're going to have what we are considering, a safer, better water feature in there. So we're pretty excited about that. This is kind of a view from Olive looking over. And again, to give you kind of a sense of what's there. We have not, the plantings haven't been chosen yet. Olivet and Bloom's going to be playing a particularly important role in that. And so, but we're very excited about this project and excited about the renewal of that important corner of Olivet. The improvements for the parks and the community center, those continued. At the council work session, the council reviewed a first draft of the schedule for implementation. I think they were happy to have a kind of a little more of a firm schedule, and the schedule also included dates for when public engagement and public information sessions would be held. We're working pretty diligently to try to make sure that we keep the public up to speed on what's happening. At this point in time, we're still working on the schematic design. We are meeting weekly as we try to move towards that final schematic design so that we can then go into the final engineering and documentation and construction documents, both for the parks and for that, for the new community center. This was the initial layout for the complex. And after some review, and discussion, this is now this is the new draft layout that we're looking at. Again, the council was able to kind of review this at their retreat as well. Changes here, we moved the playground up more kind of front and center. The fitness center, it's all the rooms are the same size. Fitness center, instead of being a square, is a rectangle. That allows a more efficient use of the space and the equipment. Allows us to do a better job of arranging things in there. We have the gymnasiums the same side. We now have kind of the aerobic fitness and the gym kind of, towards the back. We have the office towards the front. So if people come in, they don't have to walk to the back of the building. We've moved the multi-purpose rooms to the south side of the building, hoping with the patio to the east. Hoping that might be a nicer, to be a little bit better for in the winter months when you have the cold north winds, those types of things, so that we can kind of take advantage of really having nice windows there and a nice patio. It gives us a little bit bigger patio as well. Moving the kitchen to this area also allows it to be a little closer to the service entrance. And the other thing that you'll notice here is the bike path. That's the Centennial Greenway. The proposed Centennial Greenway, and you'll see that it had been running kind of north of the building, but we were concerned with some of the conflicts that might happen there, and so then that's been the proposed alignment now for that is to the south of the building. It allows a nice easy way for bikes of people who want to bike to the community center to just come this way. It stays out of reduces that conflict between vehicular and bike or pedestrians. And so, and the other thing that this new layout does is it makes that lobby a little bit more of a rectangle shape, which makes it a little bit more of a useful shape. As you can see in the first one, it was an interesting shape, but this actually allows us to have a kind of a more useful lobby. So while we continue to work on this, I wanted to make sure that folks had this, and I think the staff and the council appreciated some of the suggested changes that were in here. This is the second meeting of the council's second meeting of the month, or the final meeting of the month, and one of the things that is part of the agenda are staff department reports. And so again, I always encourage folks to go to the agenda, click on those links. There's a nice update of from all the different departments on what's going on. But this time, and I usually try to pick something out of interest, and what's in there this year, in addition to the regular police department report, is their annual use of force report. And I think that's a really, it's actually for the last calendar year, and 2019. but we wanted folks to be able to see that's one of the reports. That's one of the things that we reported back to the council. And one of the things that we do is we do have a lot of documentation of any use of force. And to define use of force, you can see we have these 5 areas: hands, fists, feet, elbows, knees. So any kind of physical use of force, taser pointed, taser discharge, firearm pointed, firearm discharge. The report then gives you kind of a breakdown of all those things. Anytime force was used, officers are required to complete the form. And then that individual form is always reviewed by the supervisor and then the major. On an annual basis, however, those are reviewed in total. And that gives you an opportunity then to look at the data across a period of time. And that's really important because it gives you the ability to see, well, if we had 19 uses of force and 18 are one officer, that's a red flag, right? You get to see not only, those individual reports, but you get to see it and look for those, any kind of trends that might be alarming or that might be good. And so I encourage people to look at this. Chief Wolf will be available at the next meeting if any of the council members would have any questions on this report. Again, it's one of those reports, is a little bit to digest, but we'd happy to answer any questions that you might have later. Upcoming events, we have the council, next meeting is the council work session on August 4th. It's almost August already. The Planning Commission is August 6th. The next regular council meeting, August 11th. Park and Recreation Commission, August 19th, and the next meeting of the Planning Commission in August, their second meeting is August 20th at 7 p.m. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anyone have any questions for the city manager? I'm seeing all head shakes, so we will move on to the next item. City council reports. Councilmember Weil. You're muted.
Parks and Recreation did not have a meeting during the month of July.
Councilmember Carl.
I have attended no meetings other than the city council retreat last Saturday.
Okay. Councilmember Waldman.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members, City Manager Sondag. I attended the Planning and Community Design Commission meeting. It was held on July 16th. Under consent business, residential addition was passed at number 2, Downey Lane. Under new business, 11 Bond Price Lane, a new single-family home was approved, 7-0. Under discussion items, siltation, stormwater management during construction has begun to be a discussion and will continue in the Planning and Community Design Commission's meeting in August. It is expected that a draft will be coming to the City Council in October, with hopefully to have a packet policy by December 2020. The discussion will be what needs to change, and Jonathan Roper will send a policy change idea and thoughts to the board. Overview of the 2006 strategic plan and discussion of an update of our land plan was discussed by Carlos. Mr. Trejo, forgive me. And explained why we do the plan. Why do we plan and why will we be doing this plan? Have that conversation with the body. Updating the website on the city center development. Discussion had with PCDC. Mr. Trejo said he will get it up as soon as possible. Landscape plan for Tower Hill wants to see them. The dog park will be relocated for the 3rd time with regards to that development. and it will be towards the Owl Boulevard western entrance in the internal section of the building. Madam Mayor, that is all that was discussed and taken place at the PCDC meeting of that evening. I am done with my report. Thank you.
Are there any questions? I have attended the meeting since my last. Are there any questions for anyone?
I didn't attend any meetings as well.
I apologize, my bad. I sometimes lose track of all the squares. I really do apologize. All right, next item, please.
Next item, monthly financial report, Finance Director Darren Mann. Do you want to take control or do you want me to?
You can say it's okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Darren Mann, and I'm the finance director for the city. And tonight we get to look at the full fiscal year up to the end of June for this year. We've talked about it quite a bit during budgeting and also during the budgeting, the actual, I guess, presentation when it was adopted. But now we kind of get a full look, and this is to kind of keep everyone's perspective. This is almost a fully cash basis. There's no accruals in here. We don't record any encumbrances in here, so that we have adjustments that go into the audit. But this is how we kind of for the most part do our budgeting, and this is for the most part how we report every month. And so what it tells us is that kind of it's sterilized. At least it's consistent with what we look at every single month, so it doesn't kind of mess anything up there. But either way, the general fund, we did end the year $384,000 lower than we thought, and expenditures also ended $715,000 lower than we thought. When we throw some positive variances in for our transfers, we get net favorable, or in addition to our fund balance of about $337,000. So those are kind of a little bit of surprising numbers after what we've talked about, and it's because some of the stuff we can kind of talk about, but mostly it has to do with some of the lag in our revenue streams compared to when most of us were all at home, and kind of we saw some of these things trail off. Now, at the same time, if we remember going backwards, a lot of these things were showing up the whole year. It didn't really happen just in the last 3 months. We were showing good variances in our expenditures, and our revenues did struggle for the most part of the year. For various reasons. If we look at the individual revenue types, property taxes, medical transport, and then permits did make it at 100% or over 100% made the budget expectations. And the expenditure variances, again, we were going through the whole year, but they did accelerate even toward that late in the year as our operations kind of slowed, and it still kind of remains that way. It's just a different set of operations. Reserve policy does show strong variance. We'll look at that here in a second, but the dashboard there kind of tells our story of where our sales taxes ended up. If we look at the Stormwater Parks Fund, only sales tax there. Fire operations also, it's about 9% down, 8 to 9% down, below where we'd expect. The public safety one at the bottom there, it runs on a different, it's per capita countywide. So you can kind of tell where things have slowed down compared to these other ones that are just our own source or just happening inside the city limits. Now, this one right here, if we show the actual sales tax, we can look at it here in a little bit for the public safety. That might be the closest I've ever been to actually budgeting. So I budgeted $420,000 in a budget for that, $66 from a budget. So that's my win for the year. The rest of it, I don't know. Maybe for bad reasons, I get to win. But you can look through there. The property tax side of this, though, does for the municipal center, that debt construction and debt service, and then the pension, you see just barely above, and that's about where you wouldn't want to be too much closer than that on your property taxes, or you might get a little bit of a snag and you won't make your projection. So everything ended up there on the property tax side pretty decent. If we go to that next chart there, you can see that reserve policy. It put with the addition there for the year. There's $3.3 million toward in compliance by $3.3 million, and that's good. If we remember, we looked at this for just the 50% for this 1 year, FY20, but then we project that out 4 more years when we do our budget. And this is the last time we'll see these FY20 expenditures for our reserve policy. It's now been updated to a different number, which is actually lower. The expenditure number went down this year. So our expectation of 50% is actually going to go down. And we've also budgeted a deficit there too in the general fund. Revenues individually, like I said, sales taxes they slowed, but ended 4% off budget in the general fund, and again about 8 or 9% in those other funds. Ongoing monitoring will be very important here as we've entered this new year. I can tell you by just if we fast forward to this month in July, we've entered into one of the things that is most hard about what we did, and that is that we're sharing more of our revenue. The countywide sales taxes have went down per capita on average, and then it's something we're going to have to keep a close eye on for what we're actually able to get in our bank account. If we go down to property taxes from there, they did fared pretty well as expected. Property taxes usually in general pretty a slow moving, steady revenue source as you would expect them to be. Sometimes they lag, so we might be fighting if we have some sort of housing trouble or house price trouble. We would see that at commercial property. You'd see that lag several years, but again, slow and steady, pretty much. You can kind of see where it's going. Utility taxes we've talked about over and over. We're going to see some charts here again on the remainder of those accounts that we haven't seen before, but the weakness accelerated toward the end of the year, and it's about 10% under budget. And then, like it says there, all accounts contributed to that miss. It wasn't just one or two. Those remaining categories, they did experience those slides, whether it be Parks and Rec. They does have corresponding expenditure reductions also, but pretty much by and large, everything went down as the year ended. The medical transport did meet its budget, and if you correspond that with what you see in those department reports, it doesn't really add up. And because their transports, their actual counts of transports are lower, and this is because of that GEMT program participation. The reimbursements were more than what we had thought, and when we were doing our budgeting, it was still in flux last year. So that's a positive thing, and that's why the medical transport made its budget from where we thought. Expenditures, I don't really have any other news stories there. It was something that we were showing good variances through the year, and then they accelerated toward the end. So now the exciting parts that now on that next page there with our charts of the month. And I introduced the pages themselves. So if you notice, I took that boilerplate, hey, I don't know what, here's how you read these new reports. I took it out, so we got a free page of stuff to do. I introduced some of this stuff. This is the monthly sales tax report chart there in the black with all the very colorful lines. And what this does is it looks at our sales taxes by month with a base of 100,000. And that's pretty much, if you kind of look through there, we don't get very much below 100,000 in any month. So it gives you a little bit better gauge of, if your base is 100, then everything else is what you're actually looking at. You can see right there the bright, in July, that bright orange, it's already been updated for FY21. You can see where we're at. This is the lowest July we've got on this for this 7-year period. And it's because we shared a lot more. Now there was some less collection. It's about an average July, a little bit lower, but we shared a lot more. And you can see where our big months are and where the big months aren't. Now, if we were to correspond that with our other charts that we've seen a couple months ago, where the sharing versus how much we've collected, you can see in January, the sharing resets, and there is none. So in January, you see these huge flips all the way up, and then in July, it hits us, and we kind of have to coast through the last 6 months of the year, not knowing where that sharing is going to end up, and then we restart in January. So it makes revenue prediction even a little bit harder. You don't know how much we're going to get. That's hard enough. But how much are we going to have to share is even harder. It's something we'll have to monitor. So how are we going to monitor this? We can have look at our sharing. We can look at our sharing percentage. We can look at this right here, collections on a base 1,000. Or you can just tune in, and I can kind of wait for me to kind of raise the alarm bells. But this is one of your little tools of where to look. And we can continue to monitor this month after month if this is the way we want to look at it. So from there, keep that in the back of your head. I did 2 more charts on the utility collections. And you can see this is, I think it goes back, almost 4 years. You can see the downward charts, and here's our cell phone gross receipts, ups and downs, and then this mirrors pretty closely on our landline gross receipts. And there's lots of reasons for that, but you can kind of show. I bring this up here because if you look in a typical kind of late spring, you'll see a bump, or you see it, decent. Everything looks pretty decent through November, September, November in some of those years. But then in January, right above where the little legend is, everything kind of shaped up. And it looks like it was doing okay. And so that was right during our budgeting time. I could support at least a stabilizing number. It looks like we've seen the trough finally. But then look, it didn't happen. And that same thing happens from the landline. So that's what makes, why did we miss so much? And that is kind of the story of it for me. A lot of it's weather related, but those are tough to predict, as you can kind of see here. With that, the rest of them are the general fund, sales tax. We see our major for our operating funds, which is our sales tax, our capital improvement fund, and then, our general fund, not sales tax fund, but the general fund, capital improvement, stormwater parks fund, and then the rest of the reporting in there. I can more than happy to answer any questions, but I think I went through the points I'd like to hit.
Are there any questions? I have one question. I want to go back to the cell phone thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to
Yeah.
the chart. So it's perplexing to me that our gross receipts from cell phones are going down when more and more people are giving up their landlines. You would think it would be the exact opposite. So I'm wondering if in some ways we're not getting our share of these gross receipts because of some sort of issue with the way a cell phone is addressed in terms of where the bill goes, or I don't know how they would know that my cell phone is here to Olivet, or somebody else's cell phone would be that the gross receipts come here.
That is exactly what a cell phone company says. And so we kind of just say billing address. Now you don't have to really raise your hand, but how many of you have a prepaid cell phone? And that's why it's so hard for us. We don't understand it, but prepaid cell phones are more and more used by more and more people. And the billing address for a prepaid cell phone is a little bit harder to kind of gather where that person's from. You go to Walmart or you go to the grocery store or you even do it online and you buy your prepaid cell phone card. Does the Walmart that you bought it from, is that where you bought it? Is that where the grocery receipt goes? Yeah, and that's exactly what they say. And if we learned anything, a couple of you were here through, it really was 15, 16, but it lasted, almost a decade before that. To actually get the cell phone companies to remit it was hard. Now, the same thing is playing out with the prepaid. There was, I know some, and Paul probably followed this a lot closer, there was a lot of, a couple companies did settle. I don't think that the city of Olivet has seen any of that money. I know there was some stuff going around with, I think John Mulligan was still on that one too in his group. But that's part of this whole conversation. The prepaid use is going up and they're really, it's a compliance issue. Yeah, and that's what you're talking about. It is a compliance issue. But it's also a little bit more, it's a little harder than that, when you get down to these prepaids.
Yeah, it just seems like it should be, that there should be more gross receipts, and it'd be interesting to take a look at it. This was before you were here when, we took the cell phones to court for the gross receipts and won. And I think with the exception of maybe Paul, one maybe of the cell phone companies, everyone has paid. I don't know for sure, but it seems just a little perplexing to me that we should be experiencing a downturn when more and more people rely on their cell phones as their primary method of communication at
The other
home.
thing, the other thing they go on is a lot of like what is we run into this on the telecom side, which is the same thing. What part of your phone bill is for what's under a gross receipts? You know, they would argue, the telecom industry would argue, what part of your bill is for internet and which part of your bill is for your phone. Really hard to tell. Most of the time, the data charges are actually more than your actual, you know, the actual cost of doing. And it's how are you sending that text message? Is that, you know, like through a phone system, or is that through SMS, which is, you know, a whole nother kind of a protocol that is more internet based than it is phone based. Paul's got a hot mic. Do you have anything to add?
I was just going to let everybody know that the group that pursued that original litigation is also in the middle of a case against Charter. And there was a judgment against Charter in December. Charter has appealed that. Well, actually, both parties are trying to figure out exactly what the judgment was, and they've asked a new judge, the one who gave the initial judgment is retired. They've asked him to weigh in and try to figure out exactly what that judgment means. And regardless of what happens after that, it's pretty certain that Charter is going to end up appealing that case. So that's going to be a while before the Charter situation is resolved. There are lots of small companies, especially with prepaid phones, that aren't attractive from a class action perspective. And I don't think John Mulligan and his group are going to be pursuing those claims. But they also have another claim in the works directly against a provider, and I believe, and I forget who it is. But they also have a follow-up claim against primarily AT&T and the big players, essentially asserting that these folks haven't been reporting their revenue streams accurately under the settlement agreements, and they're trying to enforce that. That is, relatively speaking, in the class action world, that is a relatively young case. I think it's been in the works for a couple of years now, and there hasn't been any real development in it. If the council's interested, I could ask John Mulligan if he'd be willing to come and talk to the council and give a report as to where they are. He would certainly do a much better job on it than I have, but
Me too.
I'm happy to talk to him if you'd like.
It'd be interesting to have him maybe for our September workshop, if you could. I mean, by availability, and then we'll see, you know, how that works. I think it'd be better if we heard him in a workshop, so we can really pick his brain a little bit.
I'll ask him to do that. Is there a date specific that I can give him, or should I just say?
Would be that
It's
the first Tuesday of September. I don't have my calendar.
Okay, I'll ask him if he's available.
It'll be September 1st.
Very good.
Thank you.
You'll be lucky to have him. He's a very good speaker, and he's very fired up about this.
I do want to remind the council that the chart of the month that Darren is showing, remind you the purpose of that is if you see one of these charts that he's showing you that you think that's something I want to see on a monthly basis, we're asking you to let us know that, or that's something I want to see on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, or whatever, because that's the kind of thing that we're looking for is how do you want to see this data?
Thank you. Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had a question. So do we know whether this trend in utilities downward like that is being seen kind of equally across the county?
I do know the landline and cell phone receipts would be, yes. And maybe I'll bring this for the chart of the month. I can predict pretty accurately, based on a temperature of the month before, what the revenue is going to be the next month. And so I got to say, it is definitely the relationship, or the coefficient is most certainly the temperature outside for most of our utility receipts.
I was thinking specifically of phone receipts, not the other.
Oh,
So,
sure.
yeah, just to see if that trend was everywhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's in the folks. I think it originally was like Maryland Heights. I'm not sure if U City, but they're the ones that caught the eye first, and they're the ones that brought in the suit. And of the members of the class, I think it's almost every municipality in the county. So yes, it's no doubt a problem. Both folks are in for the long game.
Yep.
The telecom and the city. So we'll get it sorted out.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, thank you so much, Mr. Mann. Next item.
Next item is the quarterly investment report. Finance Director Darren Mann.
All right, it's got a little bit longer, but we do have our quarterly investment report up to the end of June, so it covers those 3 months up to the end of June. And we did have some differences, some new activity with our investments, and they're pretty boring sets of investments. But now the 12-month ladder does remain full, which it means that we do have investments in all 12 months. If we go to that the first landscape page there, you can see the ladder, and it is arranged by our month of our fiscal year. At the top is that purchase date is in July, and then all the way down to June. All of the investments that did mature, we did reinvest them, but the final two there with Plains Capital and then at Bank of China out of New York, you'll see that the maturity dates there, which is in that very middle column, are not 1 year. It's not the year that we purchased plus 1 year, and that's because rates were so compressed. And these, the first one there in May, it was we did a 9-month and a 9-month investment or CD, and then in June we did just a 6-month. And it's because the 6-month rate in June was the same as the 1-year rate, so it doesn't make any sense to throw your money away to get a 1 year. So what will happen in those two particular ones, say in December, we're going to have 2 maturities. We'll have the one for the December rung, and we'll have one for that June rung, and we'll look at one to go 6 months and one to go 12 months to kind of even out the ladder the way we intended. And so that's how those are going to work. We'll notice that the yields on those are at 0.20%, which is barely above the ICS or idle funds rate, which is 0.15. Now we do have some. I did mention those ICS rates at 0.15, and many of you remember at the beginning of May we had a plan to do 3 $2 million kind of tranches of moving money, reallocating from the ICS funds into just open market investments. And you can see those there. We did this in May. And in May, you can see there's $2 million that came out. We did it for a 3-month maturity, and this was going to be like this secondary kind of ladder that we had running, and it was going to total $6 million. You can see the rates there on the side at 0.13 to 0.12 to 0.15, and at the time we did those, our ICS rates were at 0.10%, dropped in the beginning of April from 1%. So we had some adjustments to do. And some of the good news for this, for me on an administrative level, and for I think it shows a really healthy relationship with our bank, is the first $2 million withdrawal out of that, we got a call from the bank and said, what are you doing with the money? And I said, well, they didn't ask, what are you doing? Like I was going to take it. They asked, what are you, where's it going? And so we're able through that to renegotiate our ICS rates to 0.15%. And so this will stop. When these maturities come due next month, we'll throw them back into those ICS rates at 0.1 and get 0.15%, which we were struggling, as you can see here, to get through those other times. So that's kind of a plus side out of all of that. And with that, the only other thing required for our investment policy is a weighted average yield to maturities running at 1.2 versus 0.16 on our 1-year T-bill rate. And so we're ahead on that metric, but we're still struggling. With that, I'll open that up to any questions. We've got the statements there, and they are a little bit longer than they were before. They all remain at Commerce Bank, nothing besides outside of that, which was a plan we set up, I think, a year and a half or 2 years ago.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Mann? All right, thank you, Darren, that's great.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next item is hearing from citizens.
All right, if there's any citizen that would like to address the council, what I'm going to ask, please, is you can type your question into the Q&A. If you're going to do that, please include your name and your address, and I will read that, just the way we would do it here at City Hall. So I'll wait a few seconds and see if anyone wishes to address the council. I see no questions. I'm going to move on to the next item.
Next item is resolution number 2020-191, a resolution establishing the lump sum total cost of services based on a staffing plan, anticipated duration, and rates at a price not to exceed $586,532 for services identified in the 2019 agreement with Navigate Building Solutions for owners' representative services. Council, that I think that title says it all. What we did when we contracted with Navigate to do the to act as our owner's representative, our project manager for this, for the Parks and Community Center, we paid them a certain amount for the what we would call the kind of that pre-planning, got us up until to the bond. From design, preliminary design, and through final and construction, we negotiated that we said that we would do a lump sum fee for services, and that fee then would be dependent upon the a staffing plan. I'm just going to bring that up.
Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes?
I'm telling you that as I attempt to click on this link, whether I do it through my phone or whether I do it on my computer right now, I'm getting a "we're sorry, but this is not a web page matching your entry." Now, I know I was able to open this earlier, but I'm not able to open it and follow it on the website now, and I don't know whether there's a linking issue for the public.
I'm gonna suggest that you refresh that agenda. Hit refresh on your agenda link, and then try that resolution link again.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. This is the staffing plan, and I'll try to make that bigger so that people can see it. And you'll see that they broke it down into community center and parks. And you're going to note that we do that in almost everything here, partly because we have identified certain, while it's one bond amount, we did present it as two separate amounts. And so we are breaking down all the costs so that we're tracking those. And what you'll see here is that Navigate Building Solutions went through and they projected how much time and what level of person would be needed for each of the different functions. That got them to a number, both on the community center side and on the park side. And that's how they came up with what they were proposing. One of the things that they're doing that's new, if you recall, when we were doing this building, we had the principal, who was Todd Sweeney sometimes, but mainly we worked with a senior project manager. At that time it was Jen Kissinger, now it's Katie Ahold. Well, and Jen was really the only project manager we had. What they've done now is they've put in this master builder who has a lot of expertise within the construction, et cetera, and the design, and they're using that position also. So it kind of helps with some of the helps with kind of the professional, the right professional doing the right work. And so, so I think that's a little bit of a difference that we have. And then the estimator scheduler, that's always been a separate position. They have someone else who just does the estimating. We reviewed this, we went over this, staff did with Navigate, and we feel it to be pretty accurate. We're happy with what they're proposing. We think that in a lot of ways, it allows us to do our planning. It's not a percentage of the project, which can kind of sometimes serve as a incentive to make a bigger project. And so while this is maybe a little bit different from what we've normally done, having worked with Navigate on a prior project, having utilized them now for this project, we are enthusiastically supporting this resolution. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, because ultimately it is your decision.
Are there any questions for the city manager? Anybody? Anybody?
I think by not asking questions, we give people the impression that we're not, but I think that we're not interested or that we haven't discussed this, but we are definitely, I feel like we've already been brought up to speed in previous meetings. And so I don't want the public to think that we're not engaged on this when we don't ask questions.
I think also to kind of piggyback on that, and this is going to be my comment. I had the pleasure of working with Navigate when we did this building, and I found them to be the consummate professionals. As I said to the public, after the bond issue passed, Navigate manages a project and manages our money, meaning the city's money, meaning the residents' money, as if it were their own money. And I find their approach to be extremely refreshing, and they are extremely easy people to work with. So for me, again, it's not that I'm completely engaged, we're completely engaged here. It's pretty straightforward. So if there are no other comments or questions. Yes.
Oh, I believe Councilmember, I apologize. I believe Councilmember Carl must have gotten knocked off. But now he's back. Let me make sure. Do people see him? There he is. There he is.
We missed you.
Thank you. Okay, so if there are no other comments or questions, I will entertain a motion. Anybody?
I'll make a motion, but I gotta be able to hold on and see it there. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-191, a resolution establishing the lump sum total cost of services based on a staffing plan, anticipated durations, and rates at a price not to exceed $500,886,532 for services identified in the 2019 agreement with Navigate Building Solutions for owners' representatives.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any final comments or questions? Seeing none, hearing none. Please call the council.
Councilmember Weil?
Yes.
Councilmember Carl?
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman?
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Motion pass.
Thank you. Next item?
Next item is item number 9, Resolution 2020-192, a resolution authorizing a cost share agreement between the City of Olivet and the Metropolitan Park and Recreation District doing business as the Great Rivers Greenway District for the Centennial Trail. And Mayor, if you hold one moment, we do have a representative. Angelica is with us. Hold on one moment. Let me just bring her over. Going to promote her to panelists. And then I will share my screen. Okay. And I'll go ahead and the council knows, I'm just going to introduce Angelica Gutierrez. You can, not really. Angelica's with the Great Rivers Greenway, and she's the project manager on the Centennial Greenway. And she has been kind of leading us, working with the city and leading us through this project. Engineering work, as the council's aware, engineering work's going on with the Greenway. They're at about 30%. You are also aware that it's about a 2-mile project from I-170 to Warson. GRG's made the decision to do it in 1-mile stretches. So the first phase, and so 2 phases, the first phase being from Dealman to Warson, so the westernly end of the trail. And they have, Great Rivers Greenway has also, has part of the financing from this is they're looking at utilizing Transportation Alternative Program grant, a TAP grant. TAP grants are they're administered through the East-West Gateway Council. They're very similar to our Surface Transportation Program grants that we utilize for the Dealman Road, Old Bonham Road projects. And but the city has actually not I don't believe the city has applied for a TAP grant before. Great Rivers Greenway is requesting that the city actually serve as the applicant for this grant and work then in conjunction with Great Rivers Greenway on then the application, and as well as then hopefully when we're successful with this grant in fulfilling all the grant requirements as we complete the final engineering and actually go into construction. I'm going to let Angelica talk just a little bit about the perspective from Great Rivers Greenway and why this is kind of a good partnership as far as the grant and the project goes.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. So, like City Manager said, I'm Angelica Gutierrez. I have been working for GRG for the last 3 years, and I am working as project manager on this project. In my past life, I worked for your neighbor city, University City, and I used to manage all the federal grants for the city. So I have a lot of years of experience managing this. The TAP grant is an opportunity that Great Rivers Greenway found as an alternative to fund this project. This project runs mostly, as you know, on city parks, Indian Meadows Park, Warson Park, and the connections in between. We are not on roadways. We're only crossing Dealman Road, which is, as you know, part of where you are doing that trail that is very nice and is going to connect to the Greenway. So it is very eligible, and it's more feasible for this type of project to be awarded TAP funds. These are very similar to an STP grant or a CMAQ grant that you may have done in the past, but those grants are more eligible for road work or streets or ADA compliance and all of that. So the idea to partner with the City of Olivet and Great Rivers Greenway, it's great. These partnerships are treasured by GRG. We appreciate, you know, if we can get a cost share agreement here where GRG will be responsible for all of the costs of the project and just ask for a little bit of help from the city, because the East West Gateway, who manages these grants, they want to distribute the funding equally along the region. And if DRG is asking for different grants, we will most likely just get one. And so it is a bit competitive. So it will score more points if the City of Olivet is the one applying for the grant compared to if Great Rivers Greenway does it, because we are applying for other grants. So we want to make it competitive, we want to make it successful and get the funding for the City of Olivet and to make this improvement in your city. We need to have this agreement in place. East West Gateway requested that we explain how this is going to work. So we need to be really clear with what the city obligations are and the district is Great Rivers Greenway obligations are. And we are committing for now 2.6 million, which is a part of the total construction cost of 3.6 million of that 1.2 miles that we are including as part of this grant application. Of course, later on, we will have to come back to you to describe the logistics on how these reimbursements are going to work. Of course, we don't want to put any burden on your city's financials. We will be giving the payments. We will have to agree on details on how that's going to work, but it'll most likely be on a quarterly basis where GRG will provide the funding to you and you just make it part of your programming for cash flow. So I know, I hope this makes sense, and if I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Gutierrez? No? No questions? I have one somewhat unrelated question. It came up at our workshop, at our retreat the other day, with regard to the railroad. Do you have anything that you can share with us so far about the railroad? Have you had, I know that you were my guest at Coffee with the Mayor, but since then, is there anything new to report or that you can share with us?
Well, not with the railroad, but we have signed the agreement with WSP USA, our engineers, to help us through the process. So we are one step ahead, and now we hire them. GRG hires WSP to coordinate that abandonment process with UP. So we're in good track. That's the only new piece of information that I have on this.
Is there anyone else that has any questions? All right, if not, then I will entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2020-192, a resolution authorizing a cost-sharing agreement between the City of Olivet and the Metropolitan Park and Recreation District, doing business as Great Rivers Greenway District for the Centennial Greenway.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any final questions or comments? Hearing none, please poll the council.
Councilmember Weil,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-192 passes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Angelica.
Thank you.
Next item.
Okay, 1 second here. Angelica leave. Oh, next item is Bill 2932, an ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 215, Article 5, Section 215.670, peace disturbance of the City of Olivet, Missouri Municipal Code, and this is the first reading. Allow me to share my, stop sharing this screen, and I shall share another screen. Oops, mistake there. Okay. The council has discussed this week, kind of started the conversation at a work session, and we've continued. Now the language is before the council for a first reading. There is one or two things that I would like to request, Mayor, if you don't mind, if I can say that before we start.
Absolutely.
One is in number 9, special events. I would like to delete carnivals, turkey shoots, etc. And as an example, instead, I would like to put in parentheses, Olivet Night Out, etc. Because we really don't have many private carnivals or private turkey shoots. So those are a little bit of a kind of a funny example. But it would be fun. Then the second question, and this is somewhat of a question. Under number 1, we have is that at such times as specifically permitted in writing, et cetera, things can be adjusted. And I'm not sure, and I'll own this one. I'm not sure if the council meant for that to be here under number 1 as one of the exemptions, because these are the exemptions, or if you meant for that to be actually up under 1A, under A1A, where it would be an exception to the music. And I do have, there was an email. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a moment. And we did receive an email from a resident who was concerned that the peace disturbance might not allow for bands at like night out or things like that. And in actuality, that wasn't really even what the council was really looking at. We were looking at more of those construction times. But let me, it was on Saturday. I have trouble finding it. Yeah, it was from Kiana. Yeah.
Where did you say you wanted to move your statement and paragraph?
One moment, and I can actually show you what I was looking at. And again, these are suggestions, because as I was going back and looking at it, I wasn't sure if it made as much sense. Sorry, one second. Apologize.
Yeah, I see your point, but I'd like to know where you do want it to move.
Sure.
I get the point there.
All right. I think this might be it. Nope, that's not it. Sorry. I apologize. I had it open and I closed it. Now I'm not sure where I.
Can you read it? Just read his email.
Sure. Oh, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
So, so this is from a resident, and what he's asking is, I have read this proposed ordinance and have a question. Our subdivision property owners association sponsors street social gatherings a few times a year. Since one of our residents is in a band, he does offer to play music at these gatherings. During the June socially distant gathering, 10 of the 13 households attended. Under this proposed ordinance, it would appear that this official association activity would be a violation. Pricewood subdivision, our neighbor, also has the same activity. Similar activities may also occur throughout Olivet and may increase when Olive Crossing development is completed. As there are, not as, I'm just reading it as it was wrote, I wrote as it was written. Is there a way that Olivet subdivisions or commercial developments could sponsor events that would otherwise be a violation of this ordinance, perhaps with the prior approval of the city manager? So that's what prompted the addition of that at the discretion of the city manager conversation.
So why don't we make that point number 11? Just make it number 11.
I suggested that we move it underneath the music so that you know that you're talking about music and nothing else, but you're talking about music. You're not talking about the construction equipment or the yard maintenance stuff or any of that other stuff. You're talking about music.
That's true. Okay.
That was gonna be my suggestion, is that we move it up there.
Right.
And in that regard, then, if they're going to do that, they'll need to come and talk. The subdivisions would need to come and speak to the city manager. But I'm not an attorney, and I don't.
I'm just going to agree and say I'm fine with that change, Ruth, as you proposed it.
Okay. I can now. Want me to share this? So what it could look like is exceptions to this may be specifically permitted. That would get moved up to there. And there wouldn't be exceptions to these. So there wouldn't be exceptions to the times. And then this would say, I would add night out and not have the other special events such as night out.
Please show me again where you moved that paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
And be slow with your scrolling, please. Okay,
Paul?
thank you.
If there isn't anything else, I also would like a technical change to the ordinance itself. At the end of section 1, I would like added, be amended as presented in the attached exhibit A or something like that to tie it directly to the proposed change. And if there aren't any other changes, I would suggest that you allow Barb and I to make these changes and bring it back to you as an amended bill for second reading, and then you can move to substitute the bills as presented rather than trying to articulate exactly all these changes and have a motion today.
Okay. Well,
Well, it's just, yeah, it's the first reading, so yeah.
Yeah. So you'll amend it and then we'll accept the amended version next time in the second reading. Okay.
Right.
Anyone else have any questions, any comments or questions from the council? No? All right, we're gonna move on then. Next item.
Next item is hearing from citizens, part 2.
Again, if any member of the audience would like to address the council, you can do so through the Q&A. Please type your name and address and then your question or questions. And I will pick them up and read them and Anything for the rest of the council?
There is one caller on phone. I've just unmuted that person, so if they would like to ask a question.
I do not see any questions. No one has responded thusly, so we are going to move on. Next item,
Okay.
please. Are you putting the caller back to?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Next item is the review and approval of the minutes from July 14th. I would like the council to know that there was one issue in which there was a vote that was taken where Councilmember Waldman, it was when there were some technical difficulties and a vote was taken and she was not on the vote. That was not reflected in the minutes. That's been changed. Those new minutes are online, and I can bring up where that change was. It was here that the sheet, I guess it was, yeah, item number 7, the block grant. And there was just some technical difficulties. And as you know, when a council member loses connection, they kind of go absent, and then they'll come back when they reconnect.
Did anyone else see anything else that needs to be changed? No? Anybody? All right. I will entertain a motion. Guys, motion.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes of the City of Olivet City Council meeting as amended for the July 14th, 2020 City Council meeting.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Councilmember Weil,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem,
Yes.
Mayor Springer.
Yes.
Okay.
Next item?
Next item is the city attorney's report.
Can I ask a question?
Yes?
Sure.
There's another square on our panel. It's
Oh,
Very-
hold on one second.
Or just needs to move him
Yeah,
or her.
sorry. I was
I
just
didn't-
Okay,
I didn't know if that was somebody, one of us doing double duty or a participant, a resident.
Mhm.
Paul?
okay. I just wanted to report that we filed the summary judgment motion in the public speech case. A couple of weeks ago, we had some miscommunication problems with Maryland Heights. I think part of it was coronavirus and part of it was the departure of the city manager. And quite frankly, we weren't being informed about whether Maryland Heights was going to be in the case anymore. So I filed the summary judgment motion on behalf of the other individual plaintiffs. And I filed on behalf of the individual plaintiffs because it just made more sense from a strategic legal perspective, because this is really about the personal speech of the individuals and how this particular statute constrains that speech. Just late last week through today, we did get in touch with Maryland Heights, and one of the plaintiffs, Chuck Caverly, has decided that he no longer wants to participate, but Mayor Mueller does want to continue participation. And as a result of that, I revised the summary judgment documents and refiled everything this afternoon. So we are all on the same page. The state normally would have 30 days to respond to the summary judgment motion, but pursuant to an agreement with them on this strange filing problem that we had, we agreed to extend that to 60 days. So we won't know anything from the state probably for 60 days, and hopefully they won't need another continuance, which has been their want in the past. But we're on the way, and hopefully we'll get this in front of a judge within 3 months. So that's all I've got. Be happy to address anything anybody wants to talk about. I have no need myself for a closed session. If anyone else has that need, I'm not aware.
No.
Okay.
Is there anything else the council wishes to discuss? If not,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
you could all just hang on a minute.
Carl?
So the
Okay.
recording ends.
You adjourned?